It's me. It's not you, it's me. So yeah, okay, I think we're back anyway. So again, thank you everybody for supporting my work via Patreon. If you want to get access to my entire discography of music, our Thursday night School of the Mystics, Sunday morning Seer class, and everything else that I'm bringing to the table, patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Thank you guys for believing in me. Again, shout out to the two latest patrons we have, Marino Torres and Gil from Kingdom Equipment Center. Thank you guys so much for believing in my work. We're going to go ahead and jump into today's interview. My guest today is Laura Beers. Laura, welcome to the TruthSeekah podcast. How are you, my friend?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Doing great. So excited to speak with you and all of your supporters.
Heck yeah. So yeah, it's good to have you on. You reached out to me after hearing the interview with Molly. Are you friends with Molly? Molly was on the show a couple months ago. You friends with her or just follow her work?
Yes, I know her and I follow her work. She's wonderful.
Yes, good stuff. So yeah, I usually a lot of podcasts you go on and people just kind of read your list of accolades and what you do and what you bring to the table. I kind of skip that. I just let the guests tell us about themselves just for a few minutes. Who are you? What do you bring to the table?
Well, thank you. I am a psychic medium. I've been studying for over 15 years, and I also am a spiritual development coach. I really enjoy helping people to develop their own gifts. My specialty with my mediumship is helping people get through grief. They tend to push it aside and not understand they need to actually go through it. So
Mm.
that's something I really enjoy helping people to see that there is an other side, literally, and that's my gift.
That's awesome. We've actually been talking about that a lot here lately, with several different people, just about the fact that there's a difference between experiencing healing and suppressing it, pushing it down, and acting like it didn't happen. There's a grace, a deal with the Christ energy, right? Where he's able to go in and delete that stuff out of your past, like almost as if it never happened, right? To cast your cares or sins as far as the east is to the west, and that's beautiful. Um, you really find healing, but then there's other people who just bury it and act like it didn't happen. There's a huge difference there. What have you seen? Because they'll act like they're healed, but if it comes up, they're triggered and they're sent on a downward spiral of depression, of darkness that can last for months even, or lead to them doing very destructive behaviors and lashing out too, because it shows that they're not really healed. What's the difference there as far as like suppressing? I'm okay with it. I'm good. I'm living my life. Everything's fine. And finding true healing in that.
You just said the magic word, suppression. Suppression is not healing. If you're suppressing it, you're denying it. And a true healing is on a physical, biological, molecular uh way.
Listen,
It's
I'm
in
okay
that
with it.
way. There's no denying that you've been healed. There's no way to deny it. If someone is suppressing it, they're in denial, literally. And of course it's going to come back because that's their automatic. It's actually brain science. We have these neural pathways in our brain. I didn't know if it's okay to go a little scientific
Heck
with you,
yeah.
but we have these neural pathways in our brain, and they have deep ruts in them where we habitually do our behaviors. And when you get healed, what happens is I believe it switches to a different rut. So it's like a different groove. And if something stressful triggers you, what happens is then you can be slammed back into the other rut, and it can become just like that was your habit. So it's a matter of healing is in many different ways. It has to be accepted, I think, also in the brain, not just physically.
What are some of the things that we need to be healed from? What are some of the biggest things you've seen where you, because you work with clients on a one-on-one basis, and what are some of the things that people bring to you? Is there something that stands out, more than not? Because some people, this is like a new concept. I'm fine. I'm good. I don't really. You need your spirituality as a crutch to get through life. Blah blah blah. You need your Christianity. We've heard all that stuff, and they don't know that they're suffering from trauma and stuff like that that's happened to them when they were children. I mean, you have people that's had something happen to them when they were teenagers, and they've carried it well into their adult lives, and they're still responding to people, situations, circumstances. Heck, even they respond towards God, or even the mention of that name. You mention God and they get all defensive and mad, and that shows that something is ailing that person and it's triggering them. What are some of the things that happen to people that we go through that you've seen over the years that let you know, look, you need help, there's something going on there?
Most of the people that I deal with, I'm mostly working with them with grief and loss, and also with relationship changes. Those are the two major areas that I work the most in. A lot of times people are so involved in the emotion, they can't see and be objective to the overall picture. And that's where I come in. I'm able to help show them that.
Mm.
Truly, I believe that this is an educational problem. People are not informed. They don't have an understanding. And faith, there's so many different kinds of faith, and that's the problem. It's also the solution. Because if you are stuck in just one faith, then it's like that particular faith is your goggles that you're wearing. Like my clients come to me and I say they're wearing grief goggles because their life is filtered with these goggles over their eyes. And I want to help them to remove the goggles so that they can be their true self and see the world and react in their normal, natural way that's not covered by something else. And having faith in something bigger and larger than yourself is really key. It doesn't matter what it is. Mm-hmm. It's just key to helping you.
Yeah. That's what they teach you, like in the 12-step program, and from the religious community, they get a lot of scrutiny. It's not the right way. They tell you they're not specific about the God or the formula, but there's something to that, like focusing on forgiveness, which is or should be at the root of every religion. Walking in forgiveness. I mean, Jesus even talks about, like, if you don't forgive others, how can I forgive you when you're still holding on to bitterness and resentment and things like that? So for you to be able to be healed and walk in total forgiveness, you have to in turn start forgiving those who have wronged you. Those people haven't even most likely thought twice about it. And again, we're talking about people who have carried this bitterness and all types of things on into their adult life, and they're responding to people based off of something that happened to them when they were kids, whether daddy wasn't there, mom spoke down to them and never loved them, or whatever the case is. And so that creates these different scenarios in our life that we begin to judge every person according to something that this one other person did years ago. And it's there's so much from it. So why do we need to be healed from it? 'Cause I know you have many more examples, but I'm talking about how it's definitely affecting your relationships, everyone. Yeah. And if you're healed, your healing is affecting relationships as well.
Exactly.
So why do we need to be healed? Why can we not just take it? It's my cross to bear. It's my burden. I've learned to live with it this long. Why do we need to find serenity in that?
That's a great question. But to be honest, I truly believe that we sign on as a spirit to come here on earth, to go through our journeys, to learn the lessons that we need to learn, to be with the people that we've chosen to be with. And if we don't honor that, a lot of people don't even realize that that's what I've come to know as the truth. A lot of people don't even realize that. The people, so that's the education part. I help to educate people with
Mm-hmm.
that. But the other part is that the people that are not educated to realize that we're here by choice, they're suffering. And what I can do with those people is, and this is through spirit. This is not just about me. I just want to clarify that because I keep saying me,
Yeah.
and it's so not me. It's I'm the medium, literally, for spirit to
There
come
you go.
through and help the person that needs to be educated and understand what's going on with them. But if they're in some kind of suffering or some kind of mode that needs to be healed, what happens is I have to shift them on a vibrational level. And they don't even have to understand it. But scientifically, even, you cannot be in a low vibration and be in a higher vibration of let me say that again. If you're in a low vibration of suffering, you're in grief, you're in anger, you're in all of these negative vibrations, you can't stay there if you are in gratitude, if you're
Yeah.
in joy, if you're
Mm-hmm.
in love, if you're listening to music that lifts your soul. It is impossible physically, biologically, to be in a negative space if you're in a higher vibration. So it's very important that people become educated and understand how much control we actually have over healing ourselves. We can actually get out of these terrible suffering situations and heal ourselves by starting to shift your perspective. That is one of the biggest things.
Yeah, I've heard the quote: if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change." And
Exactly.
there's a big difference between, people of the world, people of little faith. They will say, "If I see it, then I'll believe it." But people of faith say, "If I believe it, then I will receive it." So it comes with this inner knowing of believing first and then seeing it. And I'm convinced more and more every day. And even like it's so weird as you come into new revelations about the spirit realm and universal law and how that stuff works, about we receive according to what we believe. I look back over my life, and even as a child, just thinking about things and then them happening, and we attune it to like psychic gifts and psychic abilities. I thought about it and it happened. I thought about the song on the radio, then it played. I thought about my friend calling me and then they called. I haven't talked to him in so long. These different things. And it's so, are you just receiving the energy and you get a this little intuitive message that it's about to happen, or did you will it to happen and it did? Because whatever we're looking for, we're gonna find in the universe. It will appear to us. I don't care what it is. Now there's the seed time and harvest that kind of comes into that. There's preparation, there's manifestation. So sometimes it can take a little bit longer than others, but I think you get better at manifesting things like that. Instead of manifesting materialistic things, which we need in our lives, we can manifest healing, blessings, miracles for other people, and we want to extend that to others. And it's really, I believe, hearing the heartbeat of God and what God would say to humanity as I'm broken for you, and I've prepared a way for you to be healed. Let me reveal it to my servants and let them go out and heal the nations. And so most of the people that I've worked with myself on a one-on-one basis have been people who want to be healers. They know deep down that they're supposed to be healing humanity, but there's like a gulf in between. They don't know how to get over it. And the call I received from the Lord was, heal the healers. Heal them first so that they can go out and heal the nations as well. Are you seeing that a lot? The people who are actually spending their hard-earned money to come to you for a private consultation are people who are serious about walking in healing?
Yes, absolutely. You can see Heal Your Spirit too. And that's the name of my company. That's the name of my website. And I truly believe what you just said. I mean, I built a whole business around this because, again, from a vibrational standpoint, if you raise your vibration and you're living in grace and joy and love, You can't be in those lower vibrations. When you go into a room, people that are in a low vibration and don't want to change or don't know how to change, they're going to be repelled from you. They're not going to want to be in the same space. People that want love and joy and to be healed and made better, they're going to love you. They're going to come in. So we really don't even realize how on a just vibrational energy alone, we are helping to heal other people. So we have to heal ourselves first. We absolutely have to heal your spirit too. Because when you heal your spirit, you're also helping to heal other people at the same time, just by healing yourself first. And my favorite analogy is so old, but everybody loves it. It's on the airplane. They tell you to put your oxygen mask on first and then put it on your child. And I love that because you have to heal yourself first. If you put it on your kid and then you pass out, what good is that?
Yeah, that's an interesting analogy. And yeah, healing comes to the broken places first. What were some of the things that happened in your childhood that have kind of led you to this place that you are now? I had a really overactive imagination. Maybe because of some of the things I've experienced as a child, beings walking in the room and always, having this sense of inner knowing and things like that. Did you have a childhood like that? Did you ever experience anything to where when you was a kid, maybe the two realms crossed each other that kind of set you on a mission to where you are today? Anything happen when you was a child?
Actually, I have to say no. I had a great imagination as a child, and I loved things that were sparkly, and I love Bewitch, and I'm just fascinated by nature and other things like that as a child. Absolutely. It wasn't until I got much older that I started understanding. The phone would ring and I'd know who was on the other end.
Yeah.
And I started looking into intuition and reading books. And then I joined a metaphysical development group. And that's how I started to realize that I had a gift. So as a child, not so much, but really as an adult, I've really worked on honing in what I think I had naturally. I just didn't realize it.
Now, what about experiencing your own healing? Did you come from maybe a broken home or got into abusive relationships or anything like that? A lot of people are they have a natural empathy to be a healer because they've seen the darkness. They've seen they've been to the bottom of the pit, and they know they have a genuine empathy for people who are there now. And they say, look, I can get you out. I know what to do. Follow me. Let's do this together. So where does your passion come from to see people healed?
It's around grief. I have to tell you, it is totally around grief for me. I'm an only child. My father passed when I was 18. My mother passed when I was in my 20s. My grandmother that I was living with passed. I've had numerous pets that have passed. And um, I've experienced every ounce of what my clients go through, from literally stuffing the food down my throat and denying the feelings, to actually coming full circle around to where I actually process 100% through a grief that happened to me. It was actually the most beautiful gift I was ever given. And so this is part of what I share now. I think that my journey here has been about having all this grief and having to have gone through it so that I can then know what my clients are feeling so that I can help them to get through it,
Mm-hmm.
but faster than all these years that I had to wait.
You're talking about it's a learning process. It's getting rid of the stinking thinking, these false identities and beliefs. We find our identity in things that are fading and things that are perishing, and we've been taught that to fit in, to be accepted, we need to be around these people things like that. And it gives notion what we call in the Christian realm, it would be called ungodly beliefs that we've believed about ourselves that are not true. And they range from so many things that go against the greater good that Christ has for you, which is to see you healed, to know who you are, where you came from, whose you are. You're bought with a price. And people, there's all of these goggles, like you're saying, these glasses that we're filtering through, whether it is some type of religion that says you're not good enough, whether it is some type of word curses that were spoken against you that you've just believed, and you've received it, and you go through life with that. So I always relate things back to the scriptures and showing, we talk about demons and angels and all of these mystical things which are real, but the Bible talks about spiritual strongholds or these demonic fortresses, maybe, where these demons get a hold of a person, is in their mind and is in their thought life. So these unclean spirits come in through lies that we've believed and that we've kind of signed agreements with on this plane of existence and said, yeah, I am stupid. I am not good enough. I need something outside of me to complete me. These different false identities that we've received. And so it's kind of tearing through that. So all of the demons and devils and all of that stuff, it comes back to the way that we think, in these impure thoughts that we have kind of toyed around with or let kind of entertained a little bit too long. That's part of our identity, and it shapes the way that we see the world, and it's not right. So it's like working through all of those belief systems. So have you, in helping people, it's very practical, but it's very deep and spiritual at the same time. What are some of the breakthroughs that you've seen people do, and how does that look, of just saying, yeah, I don't believe that anymore? Is there a grace that comes with that? How does that look for people?
Oh my goodness. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. I'll just talk about one client in particular who did a bunch of coaching with me. She came in, her words were, I feel so lost. I've lost myself.
Yeah.
I'm unhappy in my relationship. I'm unhappy with everything that's going on in my life. I'm overweight. I feel unhealthy. I have no energy. She was absolutely just done, pretty much done. And it was funny because she just came to me for a reading. That's all it was. And Spirit used me as a coach instead. I shouldn't say instead, but with the reading. And she decided to do some coaching with me, and I took her through understanding how she'd been giving her power away. She'd given her power away because of her beliefs. So we looked at some of those beliefs, and we went through different exercises and different understandings so that she could come full circle around. I cannot tell you how proud I am of her. She's now an incredible role model for her daughter. She is down to her normal size weight. She's working out. Her relationships, she has more patience in them. And as I said, when you change your vibration and you heal yourself and you change who you are for the better, it affects everyone in your life.
Yeah.
So
That's
been a
good.
blessing.
That's awesome. And it really is as practical as changing the way you think. You have to replace those thoughts. Jesus says that as a man thinketh in his heart, so shall he be. So whatever way that you perceive yourself, the thoughts that you're identifying with, it's going to be your truth. You're going to walk in that and embody that. And it's about changing the thoughts. So as we get rid of those bad thoughts about ourselves, right, that aren't right, we have to replace them with good thoughts and find out what God, what Spirit truly says about you. And I even see that through the scriptures. And there was just so many times where it said, you've heard it been said this, but I tell you this. Now, you've heard it been said to hate your brother. You've heard it been said to divorce your wife or whatever, but I tell you this. Move in love. Know who you really are. And so there's this contrast there, this counteraction to the negativity. casting out the negativity, getting rid of the negative thoughts is one thing, but you have to replace it. It's the same way with dealing with addictions and things like that, that you have to find something to do where you used to do this, now I do this. You know, a lot of people who would smoke cigarettes and they were just used to having something in their hand. I knew people who would chew on, and this is weird, but they would chew on pencils. They would have a pencil in their mouth and they'd take it in conversation, they'd pull it out and twirl it. They were just so used to having something in their hand, that cigarette, that it's just almost even a nervous tick that brings comfort. Like, where is the cigarette now? You know, it's something to replace that. And so we have to have those things as well. So it's one thing just to get rid of the bad thoughts, but we have to replace them with the good things, the things that God says about us, lofty things, beautiful things, which are our inheritance and which are who we truly are, created in Christ to do good works. And nothing can take that away from us. It can lie to us, and therefore we forfeit our inheritance, but that's not the truth about who we are. And it's up to us to do the inner work, to heal our spirits, and to take it back.
Exactly. Exactly. Beautifully said. It is very much about replacing the negativity. And it's the same with addiction too. I've dealt with addiction with sugar and flour, and I'm still dealing with it. It is something that's ongoing, but it's a constant change and shift in your thinking. And it has to also be a change and shift in your habits. People don't realize how strong habits are. You know, we just drive down the road and we're automatically where we aim to go, and we don't even remember how we got there.
Yeah.
You brush your teeth in the morning or in the evening, and you don't even realize that you've done it sometimes.
Let me ask you this. This is the question from the chat. And I've dealt with these thoughts. I haven't contemplated on doing it, but this is what the question from the chat says. This is from Adam Starseed Bay. And so he wants to know, let me see if I can actually pull this up. What do you do if you're into spirituality, you're seeking a spiritual life for yourself, for your family, you're headed in that way, even for your business, but your spouse isn't into it. Mm-hmm. They're not into it. Maybe your spouse isn't spiritual at all. You feel like you've grown apart even because they don't acknowledge your spirituality. They don't acknowledge the things that you're into. I would, and there's so much we can say to that. I say, be careful. Don't throw in the towel so early to the first woman or the first man who comes into your life and seems to be like that knight in shining armor. As quickly as you fell in love and you feel like you fell out of love, you can rekindle that flame that you first had. And that's the part of true love, is you being able to do that and go deeper into that relationship and that revelation of your spouse, your significant other. I will say this as a piece of wisdom for many of us who are into spirituality. There's some deep places that we go, and we may not be able to do that without being grounded by our significant other, which is our other half. And we have the polarities. If my wife was doing the things I did, we wouldn't get much done. We have a family to run. We have bills to pay. I have no idea how to pay the bills, light bills, she handles all that, but it enables me to do what I do. She completes me. And on the other end, as the priest of the home, I complete her with our spiritual life, devotion, and things like that. So it works hand in hand. Many people, they get into spirituality, they want their significant, not only to acknowledge them, but to be as spiritual as they are, to travel the ethers, to have encounters with angels and summon UFOs and whatever your spirituality opens the door for. And it's even in the scriptures, it talks about your relationship with Christ and those who are in a relationship with someone who is not a believer. And it tells you to stay with them, pray for them, and you'll see them come out of it. And it goes back to what we said. If you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change. You can pray for that person. You can do intercessory prayer and show love and long suffering. There's too many people. We enter this new life and we want to say out with the old and in with the new. And many times people's spouses are the ones who suffer from that. I've seen so many people get renown on the internet that comes really fast, and now they're a spiritual teacher and they haven't done the inner work. Maybe they've done a little bit, but the first time they get a younger woman um, that hits on them or shows them attention, they leave the wife and kids and they start a new life. It's a midlife crisis deal, and I'm against that. I really am. What do you say about that? I know I covered it, but can you add anything to that?
I absolutely agree with what you just said. Um, I that's what I do. A lot of people that come to me have issues in their relationships, and I use my example with them. My husband was brought up Catholic. He that is still his belief today, and that's fine. Mine is spirituality, and it's different from when I was brought up. But what I realized throughout our 23 years married is that when I try to push him and shove him and make him do the beliefs that I have, he goes further away. So what I realized is that I have to be me. I cannot not be me. I have to go ahead and evolve and become more spiritual. And the coolest part of this is that, again, it's a vibrational thing. I truly believe that as I've changed myself, he's recognizing, oh, wow, look at
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
See, look what happened. And it's just amazing, and how my husband has become more open minded. He's very supportive. He's understanding now of why I want to do this work. He sees the results.
That's it. Your work speaks for itself. The fruit speaks for itself. Is that it's the real deal. You know, you're not wavering. You really believe this. This helps you be a better person. You're helping other people. And that's what speaks. And that's how you win them over. It's being consistent. Consistency is key. Now, if you were up one day, down the next, here one day, gone tomorrow, which, hey, some of us do on this road. I mean, to find out who we really are, we have to test and try some things, to try the spirits even, to make sure that it's compatible to what we, our vision, and if it's good for us. And because so much of this is new, and there isn't like really like one person or one model to look at. For me, it's Jesus, but I'm talking about something we have here now that we say, okay, they're doing it right. Let me just model everything after them. We learn a little bit from each person, here a little, there a little. That's why I believe this podcast is so important, is that we've had so many people on, and most of the things we're saying is very similar. We may use different terminology and things like that, but as far as the end goal of helping people, of walking in purity, there's a common ground there. And that's the beauty of it, of seeing others walk in who they truly are, their destiny, realizing that, and then manifesting and walking in it. It becomes a testimony of what, if they can do it, there's nothing that says we can't do it, no matter what level they are. As we join our faith to that, as we believe in that, we begin to walk in it and receive it as well. There was another question here, and I know it's going to be hard to find, but let's see. As far as people trying to tell you what to believe and what to follow, and you have to do it this way, have you seen some leeway with the formula, whether it's the religious formula, whether it is, people are very dogmatic about what works for them, even if it's just something very small. They're just very dogmatic. What would you say to the people who would say that it's only done this specific way? I mean, I think it's the grace of God that it's done many different ways, and that he uses the frailty of man in our efforts and things like that. But what would you say to that people who are very dogmatic and say that it's only done a specific type of way?
Those type of people, they just need to understand that there are other points of view. And I try to work within their point of view as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. And so, using these terms, and I'm talking about God and Christ and stuff like that. That turns off a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? But I like the fact that it does. I'm wondering, why does it? Like, Why are you? I think that's a trigger too. And it's something about going to the triggers to see why it turns them off, and it's usually, if we want to find healing, it's because of, that reason that you're being triggered because something happened to you with that school of thought with or whatever. So that's very interesting too, is finding out the triggers that people have. Do you deal with that as well? Like some people say, okay, I know I'm dealing with some stuff, I can't figure it out. Is there like
Yes.
a checklist? Maybe I've dealt with that in the past, going through checklist about things that I've believed that weren't good about me and things like that. So if someone just knows, they're stuck and they don't know what it is. I mean, you get a lot of those people. I mean, we kind of know what things are. We get used to it. We know what it looks like. We know what it sounds like. We know how to get rid of it. But many people, they say, "Look, I got something going on. It's a chronic addiction to something that's killing me. I need help." Yeah, and it's not just the addiction or the thing that's on the surface. It's not the great taste of food that makes us addicted to food. There's usually things that we're trying to. There's a void sometimes that we're trying to fill. The same thing with cigarettes and a sense of comfort that we don't have at that moment. But to find out what that really is, what would you do with people who come to you and say that?
Just to clarify your question about addiction or
Well,
about,
someone who knows that they have stuff going on, but they can't just tell you, "Hey,
right,
my mom never believed in me." You know what I'm saying?
right,
But
right,
they don't know that. We know that, but they
right.
don't. And how would you walk someone through a figuring out what those roots are?
Well, there's twofold. There's twofold here. One avenue is to go back and try to figure out what it is. And that is what psychologists do. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a spiritual coach, and I prefer to go from it the other point of view. And I think that when I use some of the tools that I give people, I'm going to talk about tapping, EFT,
Mm-hmm.
emotional freedom technique. That just alone is one of the most miraculous tools. You don't necessarily have to know where the source of the belief comes from. It's just a matter of focusing on it and diluting it in the way that your body reacts to it. And it's a really great tool for addicts. It's a really great tool for belief systems that you don't believe in. For anyone that would like to know more about that, they can contact me, or actually they can go to thetappingsolution.com. I don't get promotion for that, but I love Nick and Jessica Ortner, and they have lots of information on their website about it. But what it does is it helps us to neutralize the emotional, physical reactions that we're having. And so that's one of the tools that I use to help people with their belief systems without even having to really even go into exactly what it is.
That's
We're
awesome.
fo- we're focusing on the emotions with
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, yeah. We've had several guests on who really embody some of that, some of those modalities or whatever, and they're very helpful too. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It was so
That's
weird
just
for me.
one.
Yeah, I know, right? There's just so many. Like, it was funny. I went through something called Christian prophetic prayer counseling years ago, probably shoot, I'm gonna say 2002 maybe, and really helped me so much of just going through and looking at the generational curses and lives that I've believed and different things that I've been associated with, and we kind of went through and renounced all that stuff. It's one thing to renounce it again, but to find that those thoughts or ideas of what God would truly say about you, to replace that, where there's just not a void there, but it's being filled and replaced with positive thoughts and affirmations about yourself and who you really are. And as I went through that, and then as I'm seeking, I'm on my journey, I'm talking to people who do something very similar. So I'm like, hey, there's this cool modality. You got to come see these people. It helped me so much. We were like trying to get everybody to go to it, right? But I'm finding people who are doing the exact same thing, but just using different terminologies, and they've never even participated in church or been a Christian, and I thought it was something exclusive to the church or whatever because I've experienced it in there. And so there's just so many different ways for us to experience healing, and there's levels. Do you think we're ever done? Do you think
No.
we ever arrive like, up, I'm good. I've dealt with my demons. I'm ready to take the
I
world and
think I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
you're good.
I absolutely think that we are so strong. Our spirit is so incredibly strong that when we feel that we're done with our journey here on earth, then we can go home. That's when I think we're done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think we're still working on it while we're here. Absolutely.
It's so funny. It's kind of like this little inside joke that I have that in the church we'll say that they always say you haven't arrived. Nobody has arrived, and they use that term as like arriving to your final destination as far as not having to deal with anything, and you have all the knowledge and you have all the spiritual power and stuff. Nobody has arrived. And as an inside joke, we joke around, but then I remember like putting on my GPS and going in a destination and pulling in that parking spot or whatever. It says, you have arrived. And I'm saying, yep, I have. Just a little inside joke. But yeah, nobody has arrived, and we're all dealing with things. And it's the ability to find that healing. Maybe we never get fully free of everything, but it's being able to cope with it and understand the psychology behind it. Is why am I triggered? Why am I upset? Why am I shallow breathing right now having this conversation with you? You know what I'm saying? Why do I want to punch you right now? You know, and to figure out where that comes from. And it's usually those people represent something about ourselves that we're not secure with. They're too free. When I do that, I have condemnation. Why are you free and you're able to do that? You know, and so there's different realms of freedom that we get jealous of that other people possess, and wanting to know how, you know, it brings something out in us, and an insecurity. And I've seen that on so many occasions where people do that. So it happens to us, but we do that to others as well. We represent a freedom that they don't have. And so they lash out. Why are you this? Why are you that? Most of the times, like I've received a lot of scrutiny over the years about the freedom that I walk in, and other people, it makes them lash out. The majority of the time, the people who are really doing that inner work, no matter what level they are, they usually come back and apologize. You know, they can't sleep about it. You know, and hey, I'm sorry I lashed out, man. I may not understand what you're doing, but I love you, and blah 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 blah. You know, those type of things. And so it's about being able to decipher. Should we kind of go deep within and deal with that? And I hold it, I bring it to God. I try to release it if it's something that's going to fester, or it's almost like if you get stuck with if you grab a rose, or you're going through the woods and you get hit with a prick, a picker. What would you call it? A thorn in the flesh, as Paul said in the Bible. And if we don't pull it out, it's gonna get infected. Even your skin will grow over it, but it's still sore if you touch it. If you don't get it out of there, and you still hurt anytime somebody touches it. And so that happens in mid-conversation with people, when other people say things that we don't like, or whatever the case is. Do we just keep getting to the bottom of everything, do you believe? We just need to figure it out. Why am I triggered? Why am I doing this? It's always a good reason. I don't know if like I said, about arriving. I don't know, because once you deal with that, then you go and there's more stuff. Like, it's always getting to the bottom of it, of walking in perfection, to where that nothing shall by any means harm you. Even though it's there, even though you've been through it, you know more than the average bear, you're still not harmed by it, even though that you know that it exists.
I have to tell you, what I truly have found personally, even just recently, is that I need to focus more on where I'm being drawn and where energy is flowing towards. When I start doing things in my life and everything's hitting a wall and it's difficult and it's hard, I have to really realize those are signs. Listen up, that is the wrong direction. And as soon as I switched the direction, it was amazing, because things just fell into place. The right people approached me, the right things happened, and it felt right. It went smoothly. It was beautiful. And so I challenge people to become more aware of how much you're fighting your way through life versus smooth sailing through it. and to not be judgmental of anyone else's journey because they're on their own journey. We don't know what their journey is. We can only know about our own and work with our own.
Yeah. Yeah, be nice to people because you never know what they're going through. You never know what they're dealing with. There's different levels to the healing, and it just shows that just showing a little bit of grace goes a long way. The Bible says that love covers a multitude of sins, and helping people get through their stuff, and it really goes a long way. Let me ask you about this because you have this on your website and your email you sent me. You talk about that you've helped people and dealing with what you know about the other side, and there's some special cases that you've mentioned. And if I'm going to be completely honest, sometimes these special cases have scared me with what happens on the other side, because I know we're not the brain, I know we are the spirit, but you've got cases mentioned here like dementia, Alzheimer's, and comas that people have experienced and are going to experience and things like that. It's a fear. My mind goes to this weird place, and I try not to dwell on it anymore because I don't want to freak myself. We can freak ourselves out sometimes with overthinking things, and but thinking about Alzheimer's and thinking about dementia. So it's almost like this weird place where you forget everything that you've ever learned. You forget people. You forget how to go to the bathroom. Like you forget stuff, and you're in this weird in between realm. And it doesn't really seem plausible to me that once you die and pop over to the next side, that I got all my memory back. I had the memories, I just couldn't find them. It just is. It's this weird. It's a fear that I have, to be honest, that you're not going to remember on the other side, that it is going to be something totally different. Where am I wrong? I want to be wrong there. Okay. I want to, because it's scary to me. Like what? Well, so what is your opinion on that?
I can happily say you're wrong.
Good.
in my
I'll let you tell me I'm wrong.
In my experience, 100%, we absolutely remember everything. Not only from just this life, but from other lives also. And what's so beautiful is that the experiences of people on the other side, they want to come through with just love and joy, and they want to come through and explain their point of view. Because when we're here in a body and we have our brain, we're very much connected to the lessons and the journey that we need to go through here. When you have a person that's going through one of those three things that you mentioned, dementia, Alzheimer's, and a coma, what happens is I don't like the term splitting, but there's a division between the spirit being in the body and preparing to go home on the other side. And what I see is, and have experienced many times now, is that the client that's sitting in front of me, whose father is in the home because he's got bad dementia, she'll go to visit him, and he'll sometimes be awake and vibrant and fine, and other times he's like not even there. And she can't understand what's happening. What I've been told is they're preparing to go home on the other side, and that they're not leaving yet because there's still things that need to be done here. And some of the things that I've seen that have left to be done are final words. Maybe some children need to come from another state and say their piece. Maybe the nurse that is working with him needs to be affected in some way. There's many, many different reasons why people will keep their bodies, their shell here while they're off preparing on the other side. But I have to tell you, when we go to the other side, you take all the memories with you. You take the love with you. You take all of it with you. And even more so, to the point that you're able to come through a medium or come through on different signs to your loved ones and let them know that they are being supported and loved and just gifted with their presence. Even though they don't have a physical body, they're still with us. And I wrote an e-page on the top 5 signs that spirit is contacting you, because I want people to know. It's so important that they realize that just because you don't have a physical body anymore, that your loved ones are still on the other side, and they're still supportive, and they're still loving.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they were negative while they were here, they've totally changed on the other side. That's really actually an interesting conversation in itself.
Oh yeah, because that's where I was gonna go next, because I'm under the impression of that. We have just because they're on. I feel like just because they're on the other side or in between doesn't mean that they're healed now, or they have the fullness of all things. Because I
Of
mean,
course.
some people. Let's just say, and I would throw it out there as a warning. Like, watch what you're trying to communicate with in your home. You live in a house and there's a ghost in your house, and you see this person walking through your house or whatever. Like, what if the person who lived there was a pedophile? What if the entity that you're trying to contact, or the person who you're trying to contact in the house, was a murderer, a bad person? I mean, we have those instances too. You just said that that they only keep the good stuff. I think
No, it's not that they don't keep they just keep the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What they've done is they've learned their lessons from having done that. What we don't realize is that the person that comes in as a pedophile or a murderer, or those terrible, terrible
Mm-hmm.
people, those people are, I know this is a little bit different train of thought, but they gave up their opportunity to come to earth to be this bad person and go and help other people as a catalyst to go through these experiences. We have to have someone that's willing to do that, as a spirit, as a soul, to come in and do that for humanity to learn from it. So if you think about it from that point of view, what a gift that person was, what a gift that spirit was, to come and give up one of their times here on earth to do something so terrible and negative, instead of experiencing the joy and the love that they possibly could have gotten when they came. They kind of offered themselves up to all of humanity to learn from this experience. It's a different perspective, a different way to look at it. So I'm not saying that, we should all look at these terrible people and go, oh, well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I mean, of course not. But when the spirit goes to the other side, it's a very different situation. We look back at our lives, we look back at our lessons, and we learn.
All right. Now, I just mentioned, disembodied spirits, maybe ghosts or poltergeists that are still hanging around the home. There's theories out there that they're looking for people to help them get to the other side, to see the light, or whatever the case is. A lot of times, I really feel like when you look into that it's usually birthed out of something traumatic. Like, that person died in a traumatic fashion, or they died and maybe didn't know that they died. Hence the movie The Sixth Sense. They're dead, but they don't know it, and they're still doing they're doing their routine. They're getting up, brushing their teeth, and kind of stuck in that perpetual cycle, whether it's them there, if that's literally their spirit just in that loop, or it was so traumatic what they did or how they died that it created an imprint in the ether that's just looping itself as well. And sometimes we can see it. A lot of times there's people hanging themselves. And I mean, we look into the paranormal and paranormal investigations and all the shows. I mean, there's a big industry now of people ghost hunting and going out looking for EVPs and trying to find something like that. Again, it'd be too easy for us to say, yep, those are only disembodied spirits who just need help getting to the other side. There really could be so many different things with those scenarios. I mean, we're talking about demons. We're talking about, what if it is just an imprint? What if it is a spirit that is stuck? But what would you say to some of that creepy stuff that people are experiencing? Some of the entities walking in their room, watching them at night. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. Like what would you say to some of that creepy stuff that goes on?
So I have to tell you, a lot of my clients that want to spiritually develop, they'll come to me and they'll say, well, when I was a child, I experienced people standing over the foot of my bed and they're staring at me. And what they did is they shut it all down so they could be adults and live their life. And hopefully they didn't pick up some kind of bad habit like alcohol or drugs to try to shut it out.
Exactly.
Um, but at any rate, they learned how to just totally block it out. And what I do is I help them with spirit help, of course, to reopen up and to understand the boundaries that they actually have, because we all have boundaries. It's like if you have a bunch of people come and speak in your face, you tell them, please back off or please go away and let me only speak to one person at a time. And they don't realize that these are just people on the other side. They just don't have a body. So we need to have boundaries. They need to have respect for us. We need to have respect for them. And so it's a teaching process that I go through with these people so that they can reopen up and not be afraid. They
Hmm.
have to set boundaries and rules. And once they do that, it's very easy to start to have a relationship with the other side again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's what this conversation does, just to let people know that, first of all, you're not crazy. Other people have had very similar encounters, and they've learned to deal with it and use it to their benefit. Whether it's the things that go bump in the night, and talking about this stuff opens people up to it as far as just to be okay. Because many of us have had experiences. And so if you tell the wrong person, maybe your parents who have no idea what you're talking about and you're a young kid, they've got some drugs they want to give you. They got some doctors they want you to talk to, or some priest they want you to see that's going to tell you or pray against it or whatever. But it's really your God-given right that your eyes are open to the spirit realm. Other cultures would embrace that and train you up as a child in the way that you should go, so that when you're older you would not depart from it. We don't know that anymore. We just rely that back to religion. Let me bring them to church.
Yeah.
Versus seeing who they are, seeing that spark in these kids, and cultivating it, training them up in the way they should. I got chills when I said that. That's for somebody. But drugging our prophets, drugging our seers and our sages as kids, because you're having these encounters and you're trying to suppress it. And I've always been the one to talk about this stuff at parties. I took it to that level as a little kid. Like, hey, anybody? We're having sleepovers, and I'm like, let's watch scary movies. I'm like, let's play hide and go seek in the dark. All of these scary things, and I've experienced so much on that realm, and I make things awkward. Has anybody ever had an entity walk in your room when you were sleeping? And most people would say no, but there'd be that one or two people who say, yeah, I had that. And it was a man with a top hat that would watch me in the corner of my room. And, and if we don't talk about it, then nobody knows. And there's no way for people to get understanding or get healing from that. And a lot of people have suppressed it, act like it didn't happen, because when they've talked about it, they've been laughed at, they've been ridiculed. My sister was speaking about these entities that get on you in the night. Some of them crawl on you and maybe try to suffocate you and things. There's different entities. It could be demons. It could be all kinds of things. But my sister was dating a guy, and he was in his 30s. And she mentioned to him my experience. They were having this, they talking about God and what do you believe in, and have you ever seen a UFO? That beautiful conversation which this podcast is about. And she was talking to him about, my brother had this experience, and this thing crawled on him and was pinning him to the bed, and he couldn't move and couldn't breathe. And when she told that guy that, this is a grown man, he broke down in tears crying. She said, why are you crying? What's wrong? He said, because I had that happen to me when I was a kid, and I've never told anybody because I didn't want nobody to think I was crazy. And then so now we're exploring that. It's okay to talk about that. Why? Okay, now that we're acknowledging that that's happening, why is it happening? And there's many different reasons that we've been exploring. But why would you say that children are being targeted? Who are helpless, defenseless when they're kids, whether they're being targeted by demons or even angels. Some people, little kids, say that angels are walking in their room and communicating with them, or Jesus has appeared to them and stuff like that. What would you say about people having those encounters? I know you said you didn't have a lot, but it's definitely going on. What would you say to that?
With my experience, I have talked to a lot of people that have had that experience. So even though I haven't
Mm-hmm.
myself, what I come to know is that when we're young, when we're an innocent, basically we're a child, we're very open vibrationally. And so they are open to anything. There's not any boundaries, there's no rules, there's nothing. And so anything and anyone can come in. I truly believe that it's more on the positive side, that we have our relatives and our loved ones on and our angels on the other side that come in, and they want to protect us and they want to communicate with us and these things, but we don't understand what they are. And especially when you're a little child, you don't have words. You don't understand that you can say no, even with your hands, just pushing away. You just don't understand that you have any control or any power. And so I think it's very important that the parents explain to the kids that they're not crazy, and that the kids be allowed to talk about it and to be empowered, because this is so important. It truly is a boundary. I truly believe that these people want to help us. They come to us to teach us, to talk to us. They want to get messages through, but it's very inappropriate. And I teach my students that when you're sleeping, this is not the time to be having conversations. If you do something like astral travel because you want to practice that, that's different. But our sleeping time is when our bodies need to heal. This is important for our physical bodies.
Yeah.
And so we want to honor the time with spirit during the day when we're able to be aware and have boundaries and have this communication with them, but not at night. And so you set an intention with them, an intention agreement. I had to do that in the beginning. I was not sleeping. And finally I said, look, guys, if you want to have a conversation with me, then we're going to do it during the day, and you've got to let me sleep at night. And as soon as I came through with a real strong tone and boundary, it was not a problem anymore. So
Yeah.
it's hard for kids because they don't have all that. They don't have the boundaries and the understanding.
Yeah, that's awesome you say that. The fact that you can set the boundaries. You're not a victim. There's people who think they're like they don't know how to turn it off. Like you can learn how to say, "Oh, I'm closed. The shop is closed. Shut up. I'm
Exactly.
not I'm not ready for this. I clock in at 8 o'clock in the morning," whatever the case is. Then we can talk about that. It's like almost like being off of the clock. Like there has to be me time. I do have to rest, and there's a lot of stuff that comes into play with that, as far as like not getting the proper rest and not getting the proper sleep, and wondering why this stuff's going on. There's so many people who are insomniacs and who are dealing with that stuff in the middle of the night. The things do go bump in the night. There is the witching hour, and the veil between this world and the next becomes thin. But it's very interesting. But I like the fact that you said that you can kind of set the ground rules. Hey, you don't have permission to do this, just like you should with any relationship, really. It's funny. I remember Jordan Maxwell in an interview talking about going stargazing and seeing UFOs, and he felt they had like UFOs coming over them and stuff, and felt like something was going to happen that night when they went back to the hotel to go to sleep. And he was like, set the intention out there. Do not wake me up with a little green man standing by my bed. I don't want to see that. I'm letting you know right now, don't do it. And he said that they had other ways that they showed up, and they was able to take on a different form or whatever the case is. But he was just scared of that, didn't want that experience, and made it pretty clear that he didn't want that. So it's really interesting you say that we get to kind of set the tone of when we're going to do that. Because some people, they're just receiving so much all the time that it's driving them mad. And so they've never heard that it's something that you can control or tap into whenever you want. You don't have to just be pushed around by every force that's out there. Every person who has a demon or some dealt with trauma that's screaming out to you. You don't have to, you're enjoying a meal with your family. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So that's really interesting you said that.
I will tell you, I learned it personally, and I've seen it many times too. Our spirit is so incredibly strong.
Yeah.
And where I see it the most is when people go to pass away. The experiences that I've heard and also experienced. My mother was very ill, and she had lung cancer, and she passed away within a month. And she was so strong of a spirit, she would not go until the next day when the lawyer came so she could sign some papers. She had a strength of will.
Held on.
And unmatched. And I have seen this so many times that I actually had a client who their loved one was in a car accident, and she was so concerned that he was feeling all this pain and everything. And he came right through and he said, "Oh my gosh, I saw this happening and I just left." He wasn't in his body at all. He watched it from the other side. They know, when we know as a spirit, we know when to leave. We know when to is the right timing. And I don't believe that we suffer. I don't. I believe our body does, but I don't believe that our spirit and our soul has to be in it at that time. And I do believe that that's part of our learning, is that we watch that experience, but I don't believe that we're suffering through it.
That's awesome. You speaking about being able to hang on, and being able to maybe buy some time even. People get these bad diagnoses from the doctor and says, "Look, you got 3 months to live. Get your affairs in order." My grandmother just went through that. Said she had 3 months to live, if she's lucky, a year ago, and she's doing great. And we went to see her, and she's doing good. And it came from we were getting her affairs in order to pass. But an uncle of mine told her, "Look, they told me I had that, or told my dad he had that, and he lived 6 more years, with that, and it doesn't have to take you, but it changes the way that you think, because you hear this message of hope. Say, hey, that doesn't have to be your story.
That's
you got
right.
people, and shoot, I believe in the power of prayer. We prayed for her that God would heal her and God would restore her, and she's good. And we've seen so many different experiences where people have kind of bought time, and the wrongs have been reversed, and babies have being healed. I know there was a story that we had. A friend of ours was in a worship band, and one of their members had a baby who was born with the cancer of the eyes and was blind. And we began to pray and fast, and that baby got healed. The baby received her sight. And just to see these creative miracles, that as you believe it and as you align your faith up with it and begin to speak it out, speak to the things that are not as though they were, and you begin to see it happening in your life. And that shows you how far hope can go, just to give people a hope for a future, and that God has plans for them to bless them and to prosper them, not to harm them, and be that conduit of that energy. Laura, I really enjoyed this episode with you, this conversation. Let people know where they can go to check your work out. And you also said that you had that article that you wrote that you were going to share with the listeners if they went to a specific website, right?
Yeah, I actually have 2 free gifts for your listeners. Absolutely. I wrote an e-page on the top 5 signs that spirit is contacting you. And if you go to healyourspirit2/HYS2, you can sign up for the e-page, and you'll also be invited to my private Facebook group, which is really such an incredible community, because it is for positive, entertaining, educational tips on grief and life, all just wonderful, positive, uplifting things. There's no negativity allowed in this community. So it's a really wonderful thing. So anyhow, heal your spirit, the number 2, /HYS2, and I'd be honored to help people in any way I can. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, thank you for coming on again. You were a great guest, and I really enjoyed this conversation. We'll have to do it again sometime.
That'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, my friend. God bless.
Too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Laura Beers, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoyed the conversation. Great talk. All things spiritual. May not be for you, may not be where you are, may not be what you believe, but it's up to you to decide ultimately at the end of the day, her story. But I really do like the similarities in everybody's story about what they bring to the table. It's something similar. Maybe a little bit different, maybe a lot of bit different, but there's some similarities there, and there's some things that you can take away and learn from it that you don't have to be all the way in it or whatever to learn about it. And Laura has some really great tips and things like that she's bringing to the nations. I believe that every good and perfect gift comes from above, and I think that if it's working to heal and renew, that it is from God and that it is good. The thing we have been discussing lately, though, and I've done several podcasts, and shout out to Devion, who's in the chat. We talked about it on his show last night, is the fact that are people truly experiencing healing and even working with some of the different healers even who don't know how to do it. Again, I go back to Christ, who is able to hit us with the white light of the Holy Spirit and demolish anything that we're dealing with and erase it. It's like a spiritual eraser. It's like a time traveler. He's able to go back in time and erase it as if it's never happened. So I wonder, the energy that you're working with, the name that you come in, if you're really finding healing, or if you've just learned to be a really good suppressor. You've just got really good at pretending like it didn't happen. And there's different modalities. Obviously, we're using different languages, but true healing, a true inner healing, so that you can walk in forgiveness, a strength where you can go through and forgive those who have wronged you. Forgive people who have sinned against you. Like there's a supernatural love that we can possess in Christ, in the fullness of what He is, that we can forgive those who have hurt us. We can forgive those who have wronged us. And that's where healing starts. You have to forgive. You have to forgive yourself. You have to change the way that you think. Change what you're looking at. But again, we're moving out all of the negativity, moving out those bad thoughts. They have to be replaced with good and lofty thoughts about God, about you, about your friends, your family, your situation, all of that stuff. Deal with it all in its proper context, and receive the goodness. There's a lot of people, and I have a little bit of scrutiny there when it comes to the street preacher or the traveling evangelist, really, who would come up and set up in a city and usually go to the dark parts of the city. I want to go where the darkness are. They say, I want to go where the demons are. I said, brother, that's a bad part of town. Be careful. That's where I want to go. I want to go to the bad parts. I want to go where the drug addicts are and the prostitutes. Okay. So they go there and set up and they preach repentance, and people respond to the gospel, and they get demons casted out of them and off of them. But they never get plugged in. So that person just come and went. Next week, he's gone to another city. They cast those demons out of that person, but they don't plant them in a place where they can grow and be fed. They just move on to the next city. And then so you have all these people falling by the wayside. Okay, you casted those demons out. The Bible says that when a spirit leaves, that it goes out and it gathers 7 other spirits much stronger than itself. And then it comes back to that same home to see if it still has a place to dwell. And if it comes back and that home is the same way they left it, and that man of God has left town, they'll come back, bringing 7 demons stronger than itself. And it says the state of that person now is worse off than before. So it was better for you have not to even come and did your little ditty. It would have been better for you to stay where you are. Follow up, discipleship, doing life together, walking this stuff out. It's hard. It's very hard, but it's worth it. It's very much worth it for you to walk in true freedom in your mind, your body, your spirit, to be free even and prosper even as your soul prospers, to be planted with a group of people who really care about you. It's not about the numbers. You're not just another face in the crowd. Find your tribe. Find those people that you resonate with. Find those people who aren't going to scoff at you and laugh at you when you tell them about the things that you entertain in your mind. And y'all can be honest with you and tell you, look, I don't know what happens when I die if you're Alzheimer's, and there's people who laugh at that. Oh, the Bible says to be absent with the body is present with God. Don't even entertain that. Like, those are some legit thoughts that I've had, and I could be open and honest with it. If you hide those things, keep it to yourself, it's gonna just be repressed, and you're just gonna keep it to yourself. Speaking about things is how you find healing. You want to know what happens when you die. You need to research it. You need to look into it. You need to tell people, confess it. Look, I got these weird beliefs, man. I think when I die that I'm never going to exist again. I need some help with that. To be honest, where you're not going to be laughed at because you got these weird ideas. Hey, look, I feel like I'm being contacted by UFOs. Hey, I feel like I'm being contacted by ghosts. I need to talk to somebody. And having you a community of people who are just ready to do life with you. And not just have that conversation, but literally do life with you. We'll move past that. We can talk about that, but we're going to talk about some other things too. And just as much as you need me in your life, I need you. This is a communal relationship that we have with one another. You have to find those people. And that's the power, again, of this podcast, is that it connects so many like-minded people who have felt marginalized, definitely by religion, definitely by the local church. I can't believe y'all are talking about this stuff, crazy things going on. The people who don't give a damn about you. That's why we talk about this. That's why we go after y'all following the 99. We're going after the ones. There's a bunch of them. Because that's who God cares about, man. It's the people who've been overlooked. And there's so many of them. And we're seeing so many testimonies, man, about people coming out of darkness and people having a right understanding of who God is and what spirituality is and where do they fit in this song and dance of it all. There's some things that we don't understand. There really is. We don't understand it. But we're connected to one who does. And if you want to get to the bottom of it, if you want to search the scriptures, if you want to search your heart and the depths of God and what he has for you, it is available unto you. There's nothing that is cut off. Because it's all about love, walking in love. Find those people in your life, man. It really goes a long way. There's layers to it. There's really layers to your healing. Once you deal with one thing, it just shows you all the other things that you're dealing with. All of the other things that you have to overcome. So much of it. So, I'm going to go ahead and end today's episode. This internet, again, is just being silly. It's being wonky. Cutting off. I don't even know if we're live streaming, but we're on. I am recording this on the back end. So with that, I'm going to say peace and shalom, many blessings unto you. If you believe in my work, if you would like to partner with me and join your faith with me and what I'm doing, what I'm building, bringing to the table, I need your help. And so if you believe in me, head on over to the Patreon. Look at what I have to offer. My entire discography of music is over 200 songs. And there's a big variety. We have worship songs, warfare songs, songs about spirituality, the deep essences and mystical experiences with God and the angels. Like, I've tried to embody all of that and articulate it in my music. All that stuff's available on my Patreon by signing up at the $5 level or above. And School of the Mystics every Thursday night, Sunday morning seer class, Wednesday night prayer. We got a bunch of stuff there. We have our private Discord as well. It's community. Like, there's like-minded people who want to talk to you, people who care about you, that want to help you. Make sure you get plugged in. It's available. I can't just send you to your local church. I have no idea what they believe in. You're probably going to get beat up if you go there spiritually and not physically, maybe physically. Depends on who you are. But we build all that stuff. So if you're looking for people to pray with, you're looking for people just to conversate with, like, we have that.